With us now on set is the campaign director for the Center for American Progress and Democratic strategist, Emily Tisch Sussman, as well as CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist, Hogan Gidley. Good to see you both.
Hello.
Hey.
All right, so Emily, Hillary Clinton's campaign is hoping for big-time numbers in Florida. They've been pushing supporters to get out there and vote early. So far, 4 million votes have been cast in Florida. Is that a good strategy for them?
It is a very good strategy. Of those 4 million votes, they are looking overwhelmingly Democratic. Early vote is a very important piece for Democrats on the whole, but particularly in this election cycle. We can't take this cycle out of context, out of the fact that the last 6 to 8 years, a lot of laws have been passed at a state level that do make it harder for people to vote, both early, absentee, and potentially cutting down the amount of polling places, making it more difficult for people to vote.
We've heard of those reports in North Carolina, in Ohio, making it very difficult for people to get out there and vote early. What's behind that?
Well, I mean, it's this big idea that Trump has now latched onto, that people are illegally voting, or they're voting twice, or that, voter suppression tactics are part of the democracy. That has been a very, he didn't invent it. He did seem to push it quite a bit further than a lot of others are comfortable with by encouraging aggressive poll watching. But he didn't invent this idea. Those laws have been passed at a state level for the last 3 terms. So it has been harder, and it will be harder for people to vote on Election Day. So getting those votes in early, when it's harder for people who, work a long day, work early hours, late hours, can't take time off, can't get people to watch their kids, it is important to have those early voting in, just in case they can't make it on Election Day.
Another concept, Hogan, is this. Anthony Salvanto, our elections director, was talking about this yesterday. The concept of the hidden voter. These are voters who haven't been polled, they haven't voted in past elections. Could they make a difference for Donald Trump in a battleground state like Florida?
Absolutely, and we saw some of that action actually occur in some of the primaries. We talked about the massive crowds he had, and every one of us sat up here on this desk, and we said, I wonder if this is actually going to translate into votes. And every time it did, and a lot of the folks who went to his rallies weren't on voter rolls. They never showed up before. They didn't have any interest in politics, or they were young, first time into politics, or they had been around and been so disgusted with the system for the last 30 years, they've been completely, away from the system. Now they're trying to get back engaged because they had someone who spoke to them in so many ways. So I think it definitely could make a big shift, especially in a state like Florida. Emily's right. I mean, this is kind of it for Trump. He's got to win Florida. In fact, he has to win pretty much every state that Mitt Romney won, plus tack on a couple and make a few blue states red. And that's going to be very difficult for him to do. But I will say, talking about voter rolls and things like that, the Pew poll that came out, the Pew research showed information, 24 million, 1 in every 8 people in this country are invalid to vote because they're deceased. 1.8 million deceased still on voter rolls, 2.75 million registered to vote in more than one state. Now, that doesn't mean that this is some huge attempt to try and sway the election or that it's rigged per se, but there are clearly problems in the voter rolls in this country that allow for some of those shenanigans, if you will, at the last minute. I'm not saying anyone's doing that, but the point is so many millions of Americans are on the rolls illegally. When it comes time to vote, we're talking about a percentage or two or a couple of hundred votes. That's going to matter.
But those numbers have existed for some time now.
Absolutely.
And so, but the idea that Donald Trump was positing on the campaign trail is that our entire American democracy, our entire electoral system is rigged. I think a lot of people found that not to be correct. Emily, I want to ask you though, where Hillary
That's
Clinton,
what I said. I didn't say it was rigged.
Right,
I was just saying
that there's
it's obvious there are some problems
that
exist, and they have for decades, and that's been the issue with the election.
For sure. Emily, though, Hillary Clinton is struggling in one regard. She's struggling with African-American voters. And she's not hitting the same numbers that President Obama hit in 2012. So there was some question as whether or not she was going to be able to bring that Obama coalition together. Is the Obama coalition the Democratic Party, or is it, you had African Americans voting for President Obama because they felt a strong relationship to the president as our first African American president? Is that going to be a problem for her going into these next 6 days?
Look, I don't think any calculation would count the same number in percentage of the African American community in voting for her as for the first black president. I don't think you would ever count that. Yeah. So there's no question that the campaign is calculating slightly lower numbers in turnout. But that does matter that he's out in the community and he's out. And I also don't want to imply that that black people only vote for a black president.
Right.
And because he's black. Like, there's a lot of reasons to vote for Clinton and for Obama for a lot of communities that have nothing to do with race or gender, for that matter. But I do think it matters that Obama is out on the trail, that the First Lady is out on the trail, pushing very hard. They aren't surrogates unlike we've seen in modern history. Look, they're young, they're vibrant, their popularity is very large, not just within the African American community, but over 50%. I mean, the highest of its percentage, higher than Reagan when he left office.
Right.
So having them out on the trail does make a big difference.
It wasn't just African Americans that helped propel Barack Obama to the presidency. It was several demographics. You're right about that, Emily. And look, even from his first election, I think it was around 131 million votes, and then it went down for his second election as well. So even he saw a downtick in the amount of votes that came out to vote for him as well.
Hogan, I want, so much of where candidates choose to spend their time and their money in these last few days say so much about the map.
Sure.
In particular, Clinton's campaign announced they've got a new big dollar ad in states like Colorado, Michigan, Virginia, where polls have tightened. Does she have a reason to worry in these states, Hogan?
Absolutely. Part of that's because of the blue-collar message that Donald Trump has been talking about from day one. He's talking about getting rid of TPP, one of the things that he was at odds with the Republican Party about, speaking to those workers. When you've seen stagnant wages in this country for 30 years, people know it's a problem. And while Washington and New York will often say that the economy is getting better, the average person doesn't feel that. Under Barack Obama, the top 5% of wage earners were the only people to see wage increases over the last 8 years. The rest of the 95% of Americans didn't see that, or they saw a decrease. So it's clear that he's got opportunities to win some of these states that are blue. And I said this at the beginning when these two people became their respective parties' nominees, and that was the only person in this race on the Democrat side who could make a red state blue was Hillary Clinton, and the only person we had on the Republican ticket at this point who could make a blue state red was Donald Trump.
Well, but Hillary Clinton's going to be in Arizona today. That's a state that has historically voted Republican. Is there a possibility that she might be able to turn that state blue?
It is a possibility. I mean, it's fascinating that she's been polling ahead in Arizona, in Texas, in Alaska, in Utah. Mike Pence was in Utah last week. They're so concerned about it.
That's a solid red state, right?
Talk about where you spend your money, indicates what you're worried about. That is what they're worried about. They're worried about even holding red states. The real question is, what do we think of Donald Trump's white Make America Great hat today?
It looks like all these other trucker hats. I mean,
is that going to be the game changer?
But I still say, for him, the most undersold, undervalued thing he's brought back to this country is the high crown hat with the rope at the bottom.
It's the Kevin Federline.
Bring that fashion statement back is extremely impressive. Undervalued performance.
I didn't realize hats matter in this campaign.
Matters.
Hey,
Absolutely.
they matter.
I'm waiting for the cowboy hat. Nobody brought that one out yet. When does that get rolled out?
That's the Texas vote?
That's right.
It's a fascinating state as well. Emily Tisch Sussman and also Hogan Gidley, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.